As you become stronger relative to your individual capacity in the gym, one of the challenges that presents itself is safely setting up for pressing variations with dumbbells without injuring yourself. In fact, a lot of people end up getting hurt not in the press itself, but in the process of either getting the weights into position or getting rid of the weights after the set is complete. So in today's video, I'll go over the common setup mistakes that people make that often contribute to them getting injured, and then I'll cover an approach that I have found to be extremely efficient and effective for ensuring that A, you're not getting injured when setting up or unloading the weights, and B, to ensure that you're not wasting energy that could be used for the set itself to drive further stress and increase your progress over time. One of the first errors people make is placing the weights that they're going to use on the bench either in advance or in between their sets. Now this doesn't seem like a big deal, and sure, yeah, the weight could fall off and hit your toe or hit somebody else's toe and then they'll hit you, and that of course is risk of injury, but consider the complexity of setup and how it increases the potential for risk of injury if things go poorly, which doesn't seem like a big deal until of course they do go poorly, and then hindsight is 20/20. So let's mitigate the risk of injury in advance and kind of review this. Now, if you were going off of a flat bench, most people would have one dumbbell and one dumbbell set up to limit the range of motion as they pick up the weights and protect their lower back. Seems like a great plan until of course they have to pivot and start walking with these heavy weights and either do an awkward kick straddle to get onto the bench because of the limited space they have to the dumbbell rack, or instead they do a really awkward side shuffle and end up tripping over the front of the bench. I've seen both happen too numerous times to count. If you've never had the opportunity to trip over a bench and wipe out with 80-pound dumbbells or 90-pound dumbbells in your hand, I strongly suggest you avoid the experience at all costs. It's really not worth the pain and discomfort that comes as a byproduct of it. Not only can you potentially pull a muscle severely, but the weights can fall on you in some way as well as you lose control. An 80-pound dumbbell falling on your foot or on your hand is not a great experience, and I can assure you that not only will it hurt, but it'll prove to be a hindrance to your future progressions as you have to take so much time to recover as a byproduct. So in order to set up safely and have a consistent strategy for every time that you get ready to do some heavy presses, what I suggest to people is to start off by positioning the dumbbells in front of the bench you're going to be using, just like so. And the reason why is because what we're going to do is essentially a stiff leg deadlift variation in order to stand up with them. This is something that you should be doing in between sets as well. And the reason this is important is because your hamstrings, glutes, and lower back, if you're training properly, should be much stronger than your upper body. Therefore, to use them to prepare and get into position with the weights that you can lift with your chest, shoulders, and triceps should not be stressful and should have quite a low risk of injury. So I suggest people to position them just like so, and that way you can actually put your feet right underneath, just as you would, jump back in the screen here, set up for a barbell deadlift with the barbell positioned right over the center of the laces, or the center of your feet if you're not pulling with shoes with laces. Now, knowing as much, now from this position, I can execute a hip hinge, keep my back straight. Depending on how heavy the weights are, I can set a brace if I need to, maintaining a neutral spine, and I can stand up, keeping the dumbbells close to the body, and then I can simply sit down and position the weights in a hammer grip position on my thighs, and now I'm ready to start the next part of the setup process. Once you've positioned the dumbbells on top of the thighs, you now have to get back into position to actually press them. The two ways that people most commonly execute this transition, which are probably the worst ideas ever, are as follows. The first one is swinging the weights from down at the sides and using the momentum of the swing to get them into position. It looks something like this, which seems like an okay plan when the weights are lighter, but tends to be very much a risk for injury as you get stronger. Consider the amount of stress you're now placing on not only your shoulders, but the biceps. If you can chest press significantly more than you can bicep curl, which should be the case, then the amount of stress you're applying to that small muscle group is just asking for trouble. To give you an example, I can incline chest press 90 and 95-pound dumbbells for sets across. If I were to try and swing 90-pound dumbbells up, not only would the momentum likely lead to an injury in my rotator cuff if I were to lose control in any capacity, but further, there's no way that I'm doing curls, even with bad form with the 90-pound dumbbells. This is a recipe for disaster. So check the ego, don't swing the dumbbells up from your sides if you want to lift for a long time. The second thing people do, which is closer to the proper way, but a little bit misguided, is they kick both feet up simultaneously, I can't even do it right, and use that to get the weight into position. The reason I'm not a fan of that approach, even though it's much safer on the shoulders and bicep, is because as you're falling back with both weights at the same time, you risk the chance of falling off the bench completely. I'm sure you've seen gym fail videos where people have gone for a tumble. It's not a fun time when you've got heavy weights in your hands. So knowing as much, when you roll back and you can't see where you're going, there is a risk that you could be off-centered, and as a byproduct, you could end up losing your balance and falling with whatever weights you're getting ready to press. So this is what I do suggest. Once you've gotten the weights into position, is to use your lower body strength to get the weights up to chest level. This should be relatively easy considering your legs should be much stronger than your upper body. So in the hammer grip position, just like so, what I'm going to do is roll back while lifting only one of the dumbbells. This allows me to maintain quite a bit more control as I descend to whatever position the bench is angled at, as opposed to just rolling back without being able to see and bringing both dumbbells along with me and risking falling off the bench. Now I have the ability to ensure that I'm actually in position safely before bringing the remainder of the weight up into position. So I alternate. Right leg brings up one dumbbell, place it down, and then I bring the other dumbbell with the left leg, just like so. Now I'm in position to safely press, and I haven't wasted energy by swinging the weights around because my legs have done all of the work to get the dumbbells into position. Now when I unload the weights, what I don't want to do is either throw one dumbbell off to the side, which you commonly see, because that is a lot of stress on the shoulders. You could tear your rotator cuff or damage your shoulder severely. Just consider how much weight you can do on a chest fly as opposed to a chest press. If you unload the weight, the further it gets away from your body, the more stress it is on the muscles involved, and your risk of injury increases as you move into suboptimal positions. Now, the other reason you don't want to dump them off to the side like that one at a time is because, again, you could risk falling. As you're fatigued, to just throw one dumbbell this way, you're likely going to immediately tip the other way. The other thing you don't want to do is simply let them fall, just like that. Many people do, but they don't consider, just as when you were potentially swinging the weights up, how much stress was on the biceps and shoulders. The same thing could occur on the way down. Not to mention, depending on how heavy the weights are, you could potentially throw them onto yourself. A 90-pound dumbbell can bounce and land on your toes or somebody else's toes. Consider the other people around you as well. Or you could unload improperly and one could end up falling on you in some form or fashion. And 90 pounds falling from any height is likely going to create a little bit of discomfort, at least. So, I've gotten the dumbbells into position. I've completed my set of presses. Next thing I'm going to do is turn the dumbbells in so my palms are facing each other and the dumbbells are in a neutral grip position if they aren't already. And then what I'm going to do is lift my knees up and let the dumbbells fall down to the top of the legs and use the momentum from there to sit up safely, allowing the legs to take the majority of the stress once the dumbbells come into contact with it. From this position, I'm simply going to stand up, turn the dumbbells in, and then execute a hip hinge, placing them back down into the starting position, ensuring I'm driving my hips back and keeping my back straight. Here's what the entire process should look like from start to finish. Starting with a hip hinge, doing a safe deadlift variation with my back straight to stand up, turning the dumbbells in, sitting down on the bench with the dumbbells positioned in a hammer grip position on top of the thighs. From here, using one leg at a time to safely position myself with the dumbbells in the starting position on the bench. Completing my set of presses, turning the dumbbells in and then letting them fall to the legs under control. From that position, standing up, turning the dumbbells in, driving the hips back, and executing a stiff leg deadlift variation and placing them back over the feet. If you found that content useful, make sure you follow or subscribe depending on what platform you're seeing this on, and of course, keep sending your questions my way.